back deck. We're having a beer. And he looked at me and he said, hey, can I ask you something? I said, sure. And he said, I'm going to ask you to never do that again. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Account Management, a tactical guide to success. You got Fred Fuller here on the other side of the table, Mr. John Brown. John, how the heck are you, man?
I'm awesome. How are you?
I am good. I like your background there. You got the clouds floating.
Yeah, I'm in the clouds. I'm on cloud 9. You know why?
Tell me.
Because we just published our book.
Because we're kind of famous.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, we are.
But we did publish our book. It's called A Dragon Walks Into a Meeting. It is available at Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. Go buy it today. Buy multiple copies. It's a great Christmas gift, Hanukkah.
Stocking stuffer.
Arbor Day, 4th of July. Buy a case of books. You will be glad you did. It makes the perfect gift.
It is the perfect gift. Wow. Are you in marketing?
No.
You don't run the marketing department?
No, I'm not.
At your job?
No. Clearly, I'm not. No.
Yeah. Well, here's another thing you can do for us. You can buy the book. You can rate the podcast. Right? You can rate this podcast.
Please rate the podcast. Yes, that helps the algorithms and makes it more popular if you enjoy learning about account management. And also, if you are enjoying the podcast and or enjoy the book, or if you don't, send us an email. Go to our website. You can go to adragonwalksintoameeting.com and send us a note. Tell us how great or terrible we are. We'd love to hear it.
Dragonwalksintoameeting.com?
That's right. Okay. Or you can type in fuller-brown.com.
So you can get
the internet
there
has a lot of ways to do things, Fred. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, it's a new world order. This is interesting. Let's talk about that for a minute, because they email us, like we run across, I can tell you right now in my job, at least daily, I run across a scenario where I'm like, this is really interesting stuff. Like the things that you want to bounce off of people, things that you want to talk about, these scenarios, these moments, these they come up like every single day if you work with clients. Yeah. So we want to hear about your experiences, right? We want to hear what's on your mind. What are the challenges? What did you learn this week? Like, give us a shout, because we need that interaction, because, we want to know what's out there. We want to know what's on your mind. We can help answer some questions for you.
It's always great to hear stories of people who are doing client management and the challenges they face, and because there's always something new. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, but we learn new things every day because there's always new situations. We love hearing about those.
And because we work with people, right? Like this isn't math where, hey, I can give you the formula and boom, off and running, henceforth and forevermore. Like, this is very different, very dynamic for every moment. But that's enough of that. Today, we are going to talk about creating connections and seeking to understand. So we're getting into chapter 2 of the book right now. And John, what are we going to talk about specifically within those realms?
Yeah, we've got 6 things that we're going to cover today. And they are, first of all, every interaction is a sales interaction.
Love it.
The second, learn your client. It's a soft skill. We're going to talk about that soft skill, but it's a soft skill you need to turn into a hard task. So we're going to talk about how to do that. We're going to talk about the first 5 minutes. That's number 3. Number 4, we're going to learn about practicing business etiquette, which is not where to sit and which fork to use. That phrase sounds a little fussy, but that's not what it's about. And then 5, how to interact with senior executives. 6, social media. So we're going to talk about how all those things roll up to creating connections and seeking to understand. We're going to talk about literally the tactics of how to do it. In the last couple of podcasts ago, we were talking about the 6 philosophies, a little bit more philosophical. This is going to be more like what to do.
What to do. You can't ever have enough of what to do. So Well, without any further ado, why don't we jump in? I like this first one. Every interaction is a sales interaction. And I almost feel like you got to put a word of caution in there, right? Somebody asked me one time in an interview, what do you not like about sales? And my response was the stigma. Right? Like, I don't like the slick haired, expensive suit, slick talking. So when I hear that, every interaction is a sales interaction. Like, let's make sure we temper that with it's a real human interaction. It's not a what can I get out of this conversation approach. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's right. Take the stigma out of the word. What we're suggesting with that is that when you interact with anyone, even if it's not your direct client, if it's somebody in the orbit of your direct client, that on some level you're selling yourself. You need to, and so when you say the word selling, it's about going above and beyond with everybody that you interact with, not just the people that buy your product. And so we need sales in the best meaning of that word, not the worst meaning of that word. And it's about being a real human being and a good person, right? So that's what that first one means. And so specifically what we mean by that is everybody that works at your client, even if they're not your direct buyer that you interact with, you need to do a great job for them and treat them just like they were your client, right? So that includes everybody maybe who aren't decision makers, but have an effect on your client's buying. So everybody in customer care, everybody who's a administrator at the client, everybody who surrounds your main client. That's what that means about every interaction being a sales interaction.
Yeah, here's an interesting scenario. So I have a very specific story about this, but
Tell us the story.
Well, I want to touch on one thing first. It's a great story. Can't wait. No, it's what's very interesting when I think about this is the way that the dynamics change as you move down the hierarchy within an organization. So let me give you an example. I am the senior account manager guy, whatever, and my client is big company A. With big company A, I interact at that, let's just make it up, but let's say I interact at a senior vice president level. We have a technical arrangement that we're working on and so upstairs, that senior vice president is very keenly aware of the relationship and like who is in the position of power or whatever you want to talk about, right? And everybody's aware. When I'm interacting with somebody that is down knee deep in the technical world, like they look at me because I have access to that big boss, like I am the client. Like they look at me and get real nervous and like, hey, I just know that I'm not normally talking to somebody I just don't interact at this level. It's not my thing. And that's an opportunity, right? From a sales perspective, that person is not going to sign a statement of work for me. That person is not going to sign a contract for me, but that person can be influential when they go back up the food chain.
Right. There's a natural tendency to maybe not worry about their opinion or worry about or be less than your true self with them because, to your point, they're not signing the deal, right? But that you need to be just as good with them as you would with your executive contact.
Yeah, they're influential, right? And one day they might be your executive contact, right?
So that I've seen that happen. Yeah.
It happens, right? And whether it's at that organization or another organization, it is a teeny tiny world. That's the one thing I impress upon my children more than anything in life. Like it is a small world. Manage yourself accordingly. But the story I have specific to this is actually quite interesting. We were planning an event we were taking a handful of clients to one of the premier sporting events literally in the world, right? The Masters down the road, Augusta, everybody wants to be there. It's a tough ticket to get. We managed to pull off something and we were bringing some executives in and you'd think this would be a fairly easy endeavor. You think, hey,
think everybody would go be like, oh my God, a free ticket to the Masters. I'm in. Simple.
I'll drop everything I got going.
Right.
I'm in. And typically it's just difficult. It's more difficult than that, right? Everybody's flying all over the globe, and this is pre-COVID, right? People are flying all over the globe. It's hard to coordinate schedules, and as I expected, most of them said, "Hey, can you work with my admin?" Like, fine, yeah, no problem, man. Whatever's quickest and easiest, and blah blah blah. And one of our clients in particular just had a very challenging schedule. He really wanted to go, and it was becoming fairly arduous. And at one point in time, I'm working with his admin, and she was frustrated because she's like, I deal with this stuff all the time on a day-to-day basis. Am I planning this guy's weekend right now? It's really difficult. It's supposed to be fun stuff. Like, this is just burning calories that I don't have to burn on something like this. And so I could have gotten a little bit frustrated with her and kind of been like, hey, your boss wants it. Like, can you just get in line and go do it? Like, you know what I mean? I could have taken, and probably not that adversarial, but I could have taken a stronger tone. But I just thought, she's frustrated. Like, I had to really understand, like, she's frustrated. She wants to solve this. She wants it to go away. How can I help her do that? Like, how can I be an asset to her? And so I worked with her. I was very patient. I understood where she was. We got it all worked out. We got it all worked out really well. But the last thing I did, I said, look, I really appreciate your time. I know this was challenging, and it was kind of something that you almost really didn't have to do. Really appreciate it. I said, I would like to get you something from this event. Can you give me, like your shirt size and, things like that. And I just want to take care of you. And you would have thought I had offered her $3 million. Like, right. Her whole demeanor changed. Everything changed. She was different engagement, different disposition, the whole deal, which was really, really wonderful because I felt good because she was actually in a happy place. Like, fundamentally, that was it. It wasn't, what can I get out of this? I was like, yeah, I want to help her. Right. The end result of her really appreciating the fact that we treated her as an equal was that in the future, whenever we reached out and said, hey, how are you? Any chance we can talk with Joe? We went to the top of the line. Right. Like, right to the top of the stack. Like, I knew that Joe was going to get my message henceforth and forevermore. And it was true. Right. And I don't think it was because we took him to the Masters. I think it was because we treated his admin with respect and dignity and as an equal. That's what changed everything.
Yeah. When we say it's a sales interaction, what we're really saying is actually care about the other person. And what you did there was you demonstrated in a very small way, now that you didn't, do something crazy, you didn't light the world on fire. You bought a shirt, which the shirts from the Masters are super nice. So
they really are. Yeah.
Maybe that might have helped. Yeah. But
Augusta National, if you're listening, you can send the free tickets to East Atlanta and Decatur.
Right. I don't think they're going to be listening to this, but okay, you never know. That's a great example, right? So, every interaction, so it'd be easy to kind of gloss over that relationship and not worry about it. But because the assistant was part of you treated her like the client, right? And that made all the difference, right? And so you need to do that with everybody at your client. Yeah, great example, great story.
All right, so number 2, learn your client. It's a soft skill you can turn into a task.
Yeah, that's right. So, every account manager I know, if I ask them, what kind of relationship do you have with this person? Great, I got a great relationship. Really? What are their kids' names?
Right.
Silence.
Crickets. Yeah.
Right. So, and so what we're saying here is let's turn it into a task list, right? Let's turn it into a thing you have to get done. And let's talk tactically about what those things are. Before I jump into all these, if you have a CRM system in your company, and the biggest, most popular one is Salesforce, but there's lots of other variants out there, I would highly encourage you to add this data into your CRM, because one day you may move into another role and you want to bequeath to the account manager that comes after you all of this really fantastic knowledge that you've gathered. So that it's really important from that standpoint. But I would argue, if you think about it, what's the point of account management to begin with? It's to create relationships and build trust, right? So this list is just as important as all the technical attributes, that your client has that you have to keep in your CRM, right? And so here's the list of things at least you need to know about every one of your clients: their professional background, their hobbies and interests, their birthday, their assistance information, if they have one, if they're like a senior executive, their view of the business relationship, sort of obvious, but, supporter, neutral, detractor, red, yellow, green. There's many schema for that. Their physical address and their kids' names, as I mentioned before. And let me go through each of those and just briefly mention why you need to know them. Hopefully most of them are obvious. Some of them maybe not so obvious. Their professional background, because you want to be able to relate to them, like relate back things that in their past that you know about them, so that you can ask them questions about their past to show that you're invested in them, that you understand them, right? And what is great is these days that's relatively easy with LinkedIn. You can just go and look and find out their professional background. I would suggest a better way to do it would be to ask them about it, because they will tell you the details that matter to them, right? So that's a great conversation opener.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Understanding what makes somebody tick. I worked with a guy one time who was in a almost like a project management capacity, and he was incredibly detail oriented, and he was very, very unique in the way that he operated. Mm-hmm. And then I later found out what his major was, right? Like he was a math major in college, and I'm like, oh. Yeah, like there are characteristics specific to that discipline that I see over here, even though it has nothing to do with math. Now I can communicate, and I understand your communication on a very different level. Right. And and that relationship became a lot more effective after that learning.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that leads to the next one, which is hobbies and interests. Hopefully a little bit obvious. You build a relationship with somebody by understanding them and their background, and they have thousands of Hummel figurines in their home, and you want to know about that so you can talk about it and relate to them on that level. Or they are massive scrimshaw collectors, or whatever the hobby or interest. Most people's hobbies and interests, if they have children, are generally going to revolve around that. That's pretty easy. Most people don't have really exotic hobbies, but if they do, you want to know that regardless.
Yeah, sure. All right, moving on.
Their birthday. Yes. Why do you need to know this? Because you're going to send them a birthday note on their birthday. So again, great stuff to put in your CRM system, have it trigger, reminding you their birthday is coming up. Why is this important? I'm not naturally good at this, by the way, but people love it when you mention their birthday to them.
Let me ask you a question about that, John. I think this creates an interesting scenario here, in that I've been concerned in the past where I've had a client who was just one of these kind of super tough, straight business guys. Mm-hmm. Not a bad guy, right? But just I'm here to conduct business and to move the needle, and that is my job. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like that guy wants a birthday note from me. Like, what's your advice there?
That's a great question. You have to have some judgment about these things, but I would say that person is the exception that proves the rule. Like 99% of people, that's not the case, right? And so, you want to have judgment about these things. But let me ask you this. So your tough client, did you ever ask him about his kids?
Yeah, I did. And
did that break the ice a little bit?
It does break the ice, but I think the warning to listeners, if you're new to this, is that you won't get it on the first go.
That's right.
So timing, like there is a approach and a feel here that you need to be aware of, I think, as we go through the whole list, right?
Yeah.
And that feel and approach is like, look, if it's your first meeting and you're talking about the project and they're saying they feel like we got off to a rocky start, that might not be the time to ask for his kids' names.
Yeah, right. Well, what I tell the account managers is, here's this list. This is what I expect you to know. or at least have stored somewhere. Like maybe you don't remember every single one of these for everybody, but you've got this information. You don't collect it all at once, right? So have a little bit of a plan. Like in my next 7 meetings, I'm going to collect each one of these things, right? So and also when appropriate, obviously, yeah. So like don't take our list and go to your next client meeting, and not that you would, but don't take our list to go to the next client meeting and run down the list. Like don't do that. This is a project. If you don't have this information, this is a project that takes a year or more to kind of get all this right. So but it's well worth it once you do. Okay, so we talked about birthday. Their assistance information. We talked about why that's important in your story. So hopefully we don't need to make that more obvious. Their view of the business relationship, again, when you get to account mapping, and we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about doing account reviews. We'll get to that in a later podcast. This is going to be critically important for that activity, so you know where they stand as a client. Seems sort of obvious. Their physical address. Why do you need that?
So you can. Right.
So you need it. Here's the answer. Because there's a good chance you're going to be sending them some sort of holiday gift or gift basket or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe your company doesn't do that, and that's certainly fine. But you'd be surprised when it'll come up all of a sudden when you need to send something, and now you don't have it, and now you have to go get it. But I have all my account teams get this because, typically there's some sort of holiday gift coming.
Yeah. Here, and let me give you a really good example on that one. We had clients that instead of doing the fruit basket, which by the way, that's a whole different podcast. But
we'll have to talk about what's a good gift. We can do a whole podcast on the lousy ones that I've given.
Right. It's a waste of everybody's time and energy. But what we did was we got permission and we did. So I'm not telling anybody go off the reservation here, right? Like check all the boxes internally and blah, 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 blah. But we got permission to give our top clients a membership for Beer of the Month Club thing. Right. So here you go. So you have to get their home address for that. Right. So you need it. But what a great thing, right? Like stop and think about that for a minute. So there is a need to have that physical address, and you can quickly tie it into something like that. Like people might be a little bit hesitant when you say, what's your home address? And then when you say like free beer for 6 months, they're like, oh yeah, boom. Like they'll tattoo it on,
It doesn't necessarily have to be their home address. Usually their work address is fine. So have some judgment there.
Real quick though, John, COVID makes that interesting, right?
Yeah, that's a great point. Right.
And so it actually will become much more natural,
more common.
Ask. Yeah, that's right.
But I think you're right.
Food for thought. All right.
Yeah, a little current events there for you. And then the last one, their spouse's name and their kid's name. I should have mentioned spouse also earlier. This might be the most important one on the list, I think. I don't know. It's kind of a good question. But, I have yet to meet the most hardened executive who's all business, who doesn't kind of melt a little bit if you bring up their kids' names and you actually use their names. And I'll tell you a story to illustrate this. So I was at a client kind of conference thing a few years ago, and I walk up to my client, who I knew reasonably well, and he had just had a daughter, excuse me, and he was actually talking with the president of our business. So this is a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. The president was staying there having a conversation with this gentleman, and I walked up to him, and a little bit interrupty, I asked, how's Chelsea, the daughter's name. He dropped that whole conversation he's having with the leader of a multi-billion-dollar enterprise and turned to me with his eyes wide and just started talking about that, as excited as he could possibly be. And he went on and on. And so like this person who, ostensibly is probably way more important than I am, forget it. Not even talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
He was locked onto me. And then we had like a 10, 15 minute conversation about that. Right. So point being, not that your goal should be to try to interrupt the president of your business. That's probably actually a bad idea. But the point being, the power of that knowledge is off the charts.
On a subconscious level.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that individual is going to go into some decision making about, the next contract or next piece of work or whatever and go, well, he knows my daughter's name. That's not the process.
No, they won't remember that you know that. That's not, it's subconscious to your point.
You've hit a button that will impact decision making that doesn't even knowingly flow through the,
it's not in the rational. Yeah. Right. It's not in the rational brain. It's in the primitive brain. The fact that you have that level of relationship. Right. So, I'm telling that story to exactly make that point.
Well, and then and that's interesting. So these are all great ways to learn your client. This is not a 100% exhaustive list, right? Like if you find an interest of some kind, whether it's a hobby or whatever, then that is something that you put on your list and you make sure that you take the time when appropriate to discuss and make your awareness. Like this is not about checking a box. This is about, hey, get to know people.
That's right. And the point is to ultimately build trust, right? But what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, here is a checklist. You should at least know these things if you possibly can. And you're going to use them to help you build trust, right? So we're making a task out of it, but it all leads back to that core concept.
So then we jump into item number 3 on the list, which is discuss.
So item number 3 and how to create connections, seek to understand. It's the first 5 minutes. So we actually mentioned this in the last 2 podcasts ago when we were talking about seek to understand. So really what we're doing is how to make seek to understand actionable. And that is whenever you meet with a client, the temptation is to dive right into whatever business you have on hand. And instead, what we suggest is pull back a little bit and take the first 5 minutes to either A, get to know your client a little bit more, like all those things we just listed, or B, ask them, hey, what's high on your list? What's on your mind these days? Tell me a little bit about your state of mind, right? Try to understand from them first before you dive into your business, things you need or things that you want. Try to understand what's going on in their world a little bit.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. These two things are closely tied together, right? So learn your client in the first 5 minutes, like those things are intertwined like peanut butter and chocolate. What's interesting about those is that this becomes a little more difficult in a COVID world.
A little bit.
Right. And so it's funny because I've mentioned to several people several times how the amount of subtext and sort of whatever that texture that you don't get when you walk with somebody from one meeting to the next. Mm-hmm. Right. It's that post-meeting chat when you're in the hallway and you're going, yeah, what about, and blah, 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 blah. When you go to the client and you're sitting at dinner and you're having drinks, it's so much easier to start talking about their kids.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're sitting there and you're waiting for the hors d'oeuvres to show up and how many kids do you have? Right. Like that's organic and natural. So there's things that you can do here, and I'll give you a really good example to compensate, if you will, for the new world order, this remote environment that we all live in.
Yeah, I would argue that this new environment makes what we just suggested about the first 5 minutes even more important, because that might be your only chance to create some connection. If you have a half hour video chat meeting scheduled, like we know you only have a half hour, but taking a 5 minutes just to create a little bit of a connection and ask what's going on in their world, like probably can do you a world of good when you can't be with them physically.
Yeah, that's right. And I have a client who likes to dial into he is the most punctual person on the planet. And so he is literally like 2 or 3 minutes early for every meeting. It's weird, wow. Right? Because everybody else is scrambling from one meeting to the next. And anyway, I said, wow, you're super, super punctual. But I know that guy is always on 2 to 3 minutes early. So if I want to get with him and we've got a meeting that's going to have 7 people in it, dial in 2 or 3 minutes early. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like find the pattern.
Right. Right.
You'll find,
Yeah.
we'll find the opportunity. Like, you got to make it work, and this is your job. This is your job. Right. So anyway, just a little thought there for a COVID world. What's next, John?
I would say number 4 on the list, practice business etiquette, which is a very fussy sounding phrase. But what we mean by that is, again, speaking to the point of, you're about to start a meeting with a client, that's not time to have dead air or avoid interaction. And so there's some things that you need to really make sure that you do to have good business etiquette so that you create connections so that, again, you build trust, right? And they are a few things. One, put people at ease. Talk about that a little bit. Avoid the topics you should avoid. No whoobies. What does that mean? We'll talk about that. Mm-hmm. And then a note about note taking. So putting people at ease is really about always have, as an account manager, I tell my account managers, 3 to 4 client interaction points that you kind of can just bring out at a moment's notice to start a conversation, right? And this is stuff that feeds into that first 5 minutes. So it's things like my favorite, and it's a classic because it works all the time, is tell me about yourself, right? If I'm meeting somebody for the first time, usually start with that. I mean, it's trite, but it works. And everybody loves to talk about themselves, and they will, and they'll tell you, and they'll fill in all of those things that we talked about earlier that you need to learn about your client, right? And that's how you get started doing that. So that's an obvious one. Another one I like to do with more senior executives: how's business? You'd be shocked what you learn when you ask that question, because first of all, they love talking about that. And it's going to lead them to tell you about projects and things that they're working on that may be opportunities for you as well, right? So that's a classic. Another one I'll do, like maybe if they aren't quite the business leaders, what major projects are you working on besides this one? Less good. Sometimes I ask, how long have you worked at the company? You might surface a little bit of stuff there. Here's an important one. This is something you need to be able to do. Is what do you think about the latest industry trend, right? So as an account manager, you should subscribe to your industry's trade publication, to the and a couple of other business publications like the Wall Street Journal or the Economist, or more general business publications, Bloomberg, whatever, so that you can ask about those industry trends. And that also surfaces a lot of kind of strategic stuff that could be useful. Questions that are more like talking about the weather or sports, I mean, that can be a good conversation starter. Problem is with those, you don't learn anything that's going to be useful to you. So I would put those sort of dead last on the list, but that's where people tend to go. Is people take the first 5 minutes and they're talking about the weather. I'm kind of like, as an account manager, I'd encourage you to actually have a conversation that results in useful trust building.
Yeah. And I would say be cautious in terms of probably depending. And again, this is where everything comes with that caveat of, but you got to read the person that you're talking to. But a little bit of both is probably not a horrible thing, right? There are some people that want to be strictly business, and there's other people and you'll know when you're talking to them over a dinner, right? When you're talking to them over a nice steak dinner, and you go, "Hey, what's going on with business?" Like, "Oh no, just trying to get this dumb project done." "Oh, okay. So what about the Braves?" "Oh man, did you see that thing last night?" Like, now okay, I know what makes this guy tick, and so if I want to make this a really difficult hour and a half meal, I'll stay on business. But if I really want to, really engage this individual, I'll go sports. Here's the important thing about that. Once you get that comfortable dialogue going about sports, when you need to deviate and go into that business world with that individual, they're going to be more open to it.
That's right. You can circle it back to some of the more business oriented topics if you've built up that trust. Yeah. So in the book, we put it on the list. It is something that it's the kind of thing you can talk about to build trust, just kind of lower on the list, because obviously the question of tell me about yourself, elucidates so much more about your client than anything else.
Yep. Excellent.
Other business etiquette points as you're trying to create connections. Avoid the topics you should avoid, and they are
politics and religion.
And religion.
Don't do religion. Yeah.
Right.
Any hot topic, like, look, right now, I think there's just so much. I think there's a lot of volatility in so many different topics right now.
Right.
And so you need to really think about, like, this is always a very interesting thing, right? In terms of, you have to know your client. Like politics and religion, there's other items out there that I just probably wouldn't get too close to, right?
What do you do when your client starts talking about the latest election and politics with you, trying to seek your agreement with whatever their point of view is?
I actually have a great story about that. I was talking to a potential client with a very, very large organization. And he was a really nice guy. Like, when it came to negotiations and all that, like, he wasn't one of these guys where you had to figure out who was chumming the water because the sharks are circling. He wasn't one of those guys at all. Nice guy. But he had the craziest desire to talk politics. This was back during the election for 2016. So it was an incredibly heated political environment. And so who do you think's going to win the election? Is it going to be Trump or Clinton? And I was like, I'm not real sure, right? Obviously, there's a lot in the air, whatever. And he went into,
his views, right?
Yeah, and he said, I'm a rare because I'm a minority, but I support Trump, and I just think that Trump is right. And he just went into it, and he kind of looked at me, and he, well, what do you think? And whether I agreed with him or not had nothing to do with my desire to get out of the conversation.
Yeah, you at that point you're like Neo in the Matrix. You're trying to figure out a way to dodge that bullet.
I was hoping that the alien ship thing would land and beam me up.
You up.
Yeah, that's right.
That conversation.
So what was interesting though is I just looked at him and I said, there's certainly a lot of information out there, and I said the absolute truth is I haven't consumed enough to really have an informed response. I mean, I've seen a lot, but I tend to get a lot of information from one area, and I need to do a little more research. And so I'm just not in a position to really give you have an educated kind of dialogue about this.
And the person you're talking about, they know that's a dodge, that you're dodging. They know that you're trying to not answer the question. That's okay.
That's right.
Right. You're being polite about it, and you're kind of, that's not your role here, right? You're here to build business relationships and build trust. There's no, even if you totally wind up agreeing, you don't know that ahead of time, and you're not being additive to building trust. So that's, it's a dodge. It's not comfortable, but it is what it is. That's what you need to do. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So, yeah, stay away from that stuff.
More business etiquette. This is probably the number one for business etiquette. And I talk about it all the time. No wubbies.
Yeah.
What are wubbies, Fred?
No wubbies. Wubbies are those little safety devices that have actually evolved. They evolved through the course of your life. People don't realize this. Mm-hmm. The wubby that you carried around when you were 6 months old, a year old, 18, whatever that age.
Meaning your security blanket. That's wubby is the word for security blanket, right?
That's right. You carry it around, and that's what it is. It is that thing that provides you safety in life. What people don't realize is that as adults, that wubby is the thing that is in your pocket that you use to check Facebook and email and all that stuff, right? That phone has become the adult wubby of three generations.
That's right.
Right. So, yeah, no wubbies in meetings, no wubbies when you're talking to somebody. When you're standing there talking to somebody in the hallway and you say, hey, how's Chelsea? And he turns around and he's ready to engage because you remember his daughter's name. And he goes, oh, my gosh, you know what? So they went into the playoffs and you go, oh, that's really cool. But then you pull out your phone to check and make sure you're not late for your next meeting. You just said,
right.
I know I asked about Chelsea, but I really don't care.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And it's a crutch to avoid, and in particular for any conversation that's unpleasant or that you're not enjoying, or when you get into a client situation where it's maybe a tough negotiation, it's a crutch to hide behind a screen and it's killing discourse between humans. And so we say no wubbies on purpose because we're trying to make the point of, you think what is on that screen is really important, but it's really not. What you're trying to do is avoid human interaction.
I had a good friend of mine, and we're good friends, right? Like hang out, and families have gone on vacations together and such. And I got really, really bad about just randomly pulling out my phone. And I didn't think it was a crutch so much as it was like a boredom elixir or something, right? So I was just always in the habit talking to people, whatever, pulling out my phone and just doing a quick flip, and I put it back. And I didn't feel like I ever disengaged from the conversation. I mean,
right.
It's truly like an addictive behavior thing, right? And I'm with this friend of mine, and I did it. It was like a Friday night at 11 o'clock. We're out on the back deck. We're having a beer, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, can I ask you something?" I said, "Sure." And he said, "I'm going to ask you to never do that again."
That's really direct.
Yeah, I was like, we are really good friends like that, right? It wasn't. I was just kind of like, and it just hit me. It hit me like a bolt of lightning of like, that's like how rude it is.
Yeah.
It's so incredibly rude. And I just sort of looked at him and I honestly didn't have even a second of being offended. I just was like, I instantly felt horrible. And I was like, holy crap. And in my head, I thought, this is a good friend. And
that's God a good friend. It really is. Yeah.
And thank God he said that to me. How many people have I done that to in a business context that haven't said anything to me, that have walked away thinking that asshole won't give me the time of day?
Right. Whoa, this is a family show.
No, it's a family show, people.
Ouch. No, that's a great story. That is a great story. Like,
yeah, good friend.
Yeah, no, that's a really good friend. And it relates to the last one on the list about business etiquette, which is around note taking. So I think where this comes from a little bit is in college now, or any kind of higher education, or even maybe a high school sometimes, a lot of note taking is actually now done on computers. And so people translate that into, I'm in a business meeting, so I'm going to take notes on my computer. And again, I'm behind the screen, but this is okay because I'm taking notes about the meeting. So that's cool. No, it's not. Don't do it. For a couple of reasons. One, if you're staring at a screen, there is no such thing as multitasking. What you're really doing is you're playing with your whoopee. And then, two, the clickety clack of the keyboard is actually really distracting, to everybody else in the meeting. And in particular, and God forbid, if you're one-on-one with somebody, it's 10,000 times worse. I've had that happen before. People start taking notes while we're talking, like that. That's just dreadful. And and I think a lot of people are surprised to find out that that's not what to do in a business meeting. Now, I will say there is an exception. Sometimes you have very large meetings. You might have like a project manager, somebody like that, who's the designated note taker, but they're not a meeting participant. Right. They're maybe sitting in another place in the room. I'm talking about people who are participating in a meeting. If you are on point, and probably you are because you are the account manager, and you're meant to be in the meeting, actually helping to lead the meeting, facilitate the meeting, create discussion, that taking notes on your laptop, no, don't do it. You're using a whoopee, and you're killing trust by doing that.
Yeah, this is really interesting because this too brings in sort of like the new world order of COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So now everything is done via Zoom. Mm-hmm. And if I can take notes on my computer, typically people are none the wiser, I think. Right. So
you might think that, but they are.
But here, to me, the bigger danger is, this is what I'm seeing on these video conference calls that makes me crazy, and is the notion of being able to multitask.
Right.
So I'm on a conference call. I've got Slack up, right? And so we're talking about this because we've got some sort of a back channel going so we can have this real-time conversation about the client and about the conversation. So we're making the good decisions and presenting all the appropriate, like all that stuff. Like that is a distraction. Yeah. Right. And if you have to have that sort of real-time moment where hey, don't forget to talk about the thing, like if you have to, you have to, because this is the new world order. What I'm going to tell you not to do definitively is talk about the shirt that guy is wearing. Right? Like when you're in here and you're in the meeting and you have to exchange some piece of information to move the conversation forward. If you have to do that, do it judiciously. But anything beyond that is an absolute distraction and an absolute no.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that, John?
Tell me more about what you mean by that a little bit.
Well, I'm talking about that distraction of when I say something to somebody and then they go, hey, yeah, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Oh, yeah. Right. They were doing something else.
They're doing something else, right? Yeah. And so that's my whole point. It's the note taking thing. It's the note taking is a perception thing, but it's also a distraction thing. Right. And so if you say I'm taking notes on my computer, the person across from you may or may not know that. They may or may not like it. And at that point in time, what you've done is you planted something in their head that is not germane to the conversation.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. I got lost in the shirt part analogy.
Yeah,
I started thinking about shirts.
Well, my point there is that
we've mentioned shirts a lot in this podcast.
There's a lot of talk about shirts. No, my point being, if you're not trading information that is critical to the conversation, right? So, I've been on calls where people are like, "Oh my God, did he just say that? Oh my gosh, can you see? Look at the background there. Make your bed, dude." Like, there's that stuff going on, and you're like, if it doesn't add to the conversation, please stop.
Right. Yeah, that's right. And that's what typing on a keyboard does. It doesn't add, it subtracts.
Yeah.
So anyway, business etiquette. And I would say the most important part of business etiquette in today's modern world is being really careful about focusing on humans instead of focusing on screens and technology. And it's tough. And it's tough, even tougher in a world where you're on a screen in order to interact with people in COVID. But we would just suggest keeping your hands off the keyboard. And if your boss texts you in the middle of the meeting and says, I have an emergency, you probably do need to respond to that. But just know when you start doing that, you are not paying attention to the meeting and you're violating your own rule, right? It does happen to the best of us. But, we lay these things out for a reason, which is to say there's a right way to do it. And sometimes, the life isn't perfect and the world doesn't always revolve around your rules. But just know when you're breaking an important rule. All right, let's move on to number 5 about how to create connections. And that is how to interact with senior executives. No weird micro interactions.
Yeah.
Don't be weird is how to interact with senior executives.
Don't be weird. They are human beings. They do the same stuff that you do, right? They get up and eat breakfast and brush their teeth and they have dogs that make messes and kids that don't listen to them.
They put their pants on one leg at a time.
Right.
They don't jump off the bed and do both.
Yeah. So don't.
Do they? Does anybody do that?
I do it on Wednesdays. Mondays, I'm just not warmed up enough. I'm not limber enough. But yeah. No, that's this. These are the people are people are people. We're all just people, and treat them like people. That's what they want.
Right. That sales interaction thing we talked about at the beginning. The point being, on some level you're selling yourself, and that is important. You do want to do that, but not to the point of being weird. And we'll give you 3 examples of weirdness that we've seen that you want to avoid when you're interacting with senior executives. And that is one, and this happens in particular when you're presenting to an audience, is focusing all your energy on the one executive. I've seen this a bunch where you're presenting to a room full of people and you are only talking to the one person, the one senior business leader that matters. So all your energy is in him or her, and you're not even looking at the rest of the room. That's a fail, right?
It happens all the time. I got called out on this, and I'll share that. I got called out on this to where I was having these sort of executive steering committee meetings, and there's a senior executive, and then that person's right hand person who signs everything for us, and she is our go-to, whatever. But I was constantly going to the senior guy and saying, "Hey, Mr. Senior Executive, what do you think? Hey, Mr. Senior Executive, what do you think? Hey, Mr. Senior Executive." And then somebody came to me after one of the meetings and said, "I think you kind of not ingratiating yourself with her.
Right. There's other people in the room.
And once I was told, I literally, there wasn't oh, well, what do you mean? Or I can't think, and I don't think you're right. You're misreading. I instantaneously was like, holy crap, I totally am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second kind of point, avoid status reinforcing statements. So I've seen this many times. The sentence is like, well, somebody in your position, wouldn't have to worry about this. Or, well, given, what you do here, something that is kind of arch like that and sounds like, just reinforcing, well, you're obviously the most important person here. The important person in the room, the owner of the business, the CEO, the chief technology officer, they know what their role is. Like they're not confused about that. They don't need to be reminded in a weird way.
Yep.
So don't do it.
Yep.
Right. And I have seen account managers do that, and it's like they know already. Yeah. And the third one goes along with this: avoid weird, elaborate courtesies that you wouldn't do for anyone else. Like I'll tell you a story. Like the one I see all the time is like you're 20 steps ahead, the senior executive walking down the hallway, and then you open the door for them and hold it for them with a presentation. So you can't see me, we're on a podcast, but waving your arms open like I'm Vanna White on Wheel of Fortune, ushering you into the next room. That's weird. That kind of thing is really weird. I have a little story in the book. This is true. One time I was with a friend of mine, this is a few companies ago, and we were walking into a building, and it had like a glass door, and we could see that the CEO of the company, a pretty big company, was coming out. And so my friend goes to push the door open for him. And again, 20 paces ahead, like he's a Maharaja about to arrive or something like that. And because he didn't take the time to look that it was actually a pull versus a push, he somehow awkwardly manages to like slam his whole body into the glass before he struggles to get the door open for the CEO, who finally walks out. And I must have laughed for 20 minutes after that. It was very enjoyable to watch, but he looked completely awkward and silly. And the CEO sort of gave us a glance like, what,
where's the clown car? Where'd you park the clown car, gentlemen?
Exactly. I tease him about it to this day. But that's what we're talking about. You both arrive at a door at the same time, hold the door open for somebody else. Yeah, you would do that for a friend or, anybody else that you're with to, have that level of courtesy, but just don't be weird.
So I have a similar story in that it was actually my boss, and I'd worked for him for a while, so we were comfortable with each other. And I walked in, and he was at that really awkward in between zone. So he wasn't far enough back that I was like, well, I'm not holding the door. And he wasn't close enough to where it was like an automatic. Like it was like, crap, should I hold the door or should I not? And so I held the door, and then I counted, like, I'm like, well, like one, like I'm waiting for him to get there, And finally I was like, okay, to heck with it. And I let the door go and walk away. And he walks in halfway through the door closing and kind of like got caught in between. It was stellar. And he looked at me and he was a really cool guy. I love working with him. And he just kind of looked at me and he laughed and he, let a few expletives fly. And he's like, what the hell was that, Fuller? Like, gee whiz, you're holding the door, aren't you? And so it's exactly what you're talking about, is that moment of like, I just walk in. Like I wouldn't have held for anybody else. I wouldn't even have asked. I would have just walked in and not held.
Yeah, right. You would have just done what you normally do. But it sounds like we need to do a whole podcast on door holding. I think so. We need to add a chapter of the book called How to Hold a Door. That's the. So I guess that's a big theme here. But
it's funny.
We need to figure that out. Anyway, so number 5, how to interact with senior executives. No weird micro interactions. And there's a reason why we say micro interactions, which is like your interactions with a senior executive, particularly in an account management context, like the person who actually signs the contract, might be a person that you actually only interact with in a micro sense. Like you meet them, you shake hands, maybe you stop by their office, and then the meeting is with their subordinate team that actually is doing, having the working meeting with you. So if you micro get weird when you meet them, like that might be your only shot. And so what we're saying is, don't do that. Be calm.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
One more on the list.
Yeah, last one on the list. Social media. Social media.
So this is interesting. We're going to kind of go to the inverse here. So everything we talked about before is how to create connections and seek to understand. So everything there. Social media is obviously all about connections, right? Connecting to other people. But our advice on that is going to be a little bit different than what you might expect here. So we recommend you connect on professional networks, like LinkedIn being kind of the obvious one, but not connecting personally necessarily to your clients. And now, however, with the caveat, if you're a marketing person and you own the social media property for your business and you're connecting to people as your business, that's a little bit different. Like that's certainly fine. But we would suggest you not connect to people personally who are your clients unless you were, friends previously. And we'll talk about that for a second. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, you don't know what is going to happen in the future. And you also are not necessarily going to own everything that happened in the past. So somebody can post on social media your best ever keg stand and tag you with it. And that's going to show up in the feed of your client. Is that what you want? Right.
Right.
And then in the future, your life can change, and maybe that's not something you want clients to know about. I remember very specifically a person that I know on one of the larger social media platforms started posting about their mental health issues, which is fine, amongst your friends, and that's cool. But is that necessarily something that you want clients to know about, right? So you just kind of don't know how your personal life can be separate from your business life. You don't know what can happen. So we would suggest not doing that.
Yeah, I'll take that a step further and say that I have worked with people who have done this. I've worked with people who have said, "Oh my gosh, Jenny over at company A, actually we just connected on Facebook. So we're best buddies. I can make anything happen now." And it's actually a little bit of the opposite.
Yeah.
Like I've seen relationships that the more personal they become, the less productive they are from a business perspective.
Yeah. And you do want to build that relationship, build trust, and more personal self, like we talked about before, is better. I think what's different about social media is that it's a very thin connection, right? Like it's a pinhole into you're looking through a pinhole at somebody else, right? Whereas that relationship deepening that you want is all of the things we were talking about earlier. So real human connection. So knowing their kids' names, being present with them, not playing with your phone, like really listening when they talk and trying to understand their world and their background. Like that kind of one-on-one human connection, that's the connection that you want. The sort of connection that you have with just social media, that's not a real human connection.
It's superficial.
It's very superficial, Brett.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, man. So let's see here. So let me hit that list again. That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
So
we did a long one today.
Let's cruise through that. Every interaction is a sales interaction, meaning value everybody equally.
That's right.
Learn your client. It's a soft skill you can turn into a task. You have a job to do. Learn your client. Go do it. This is about knowing your clients, not necessarily checking a box or a list. It's about get to know that person, right?
Right.
Discuss the first 5 minutes. So treat people as humans, essentially, right? Don't go into that next meeting like, here we go, and we're going to check the box, blah, 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 go. Like, that's not how you do that. Everybody's human. They want to be treated like humans. Practice business etiquette. It's not about the forks. We ought to make that the subtitle. Practice business etiquette. It's not about the
Don't worry about forks.
Don't worry about forks. So focus on how you interact with people and your presence and how you treat people and the things you do and how that affects people, i.e. no wubbies.
Right.
How to interact with senior executives. No weird micro interactions. Senior executives are people too. Put on their pants one leg at a time. Treat them as such. Social media. Basically, more or less, outside of LinkedIn, don't do it.
That's right. If you were connected to somebody previously and they become a client, that's a judgment call. You can figure out what to do there. We might say it might be worth it to break the connection, but more often than not, it's just better to avoid it on a personal level.
All right.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, well, there it is. So look, we're going to wrap this sucker up, but in doing so, go to Amazon, buy the book. Buy the book. You get the hardback for $15, the Kindle for $10. It's a great read, great stuff, stocking stuff. We're selling it for Christmas now, right?
So, it's really good for any occasion. Valentine's Day, I'd say.
Give it away to the kids at Halloween.
It's a great, right. Instead of candy, the book, Thanksgiving.
All right.
Whatever. It's a great.
You're out. I'm cutting you off.
Sorry.
Rate the podcast. Go to where you do that. iTunes or
iTunes,
wherever.
We're on all the platforms.
Rate this thing, and then email us. Where can they email us, John?
Go to our website at fuller-brown.com, or you can just type in "a dragon walks into a meeting," and there's a form, and you can send us an email there.
All right. We want to hear from you. We know you got stuff going on. We know you got questions. Email us. For this episode, create connections and seek to understand. I believe that is a wrap. John Brown, take us out of here.
Well, I had a lot of fun. Thanks, Fred. This was great.
That's horrible. All right. For John Brown, Fred Fuller, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Account Management, a tactical guide to success. We'll see you next time.